everybody? Today's guest is George Abreu. George has been investing in real estate for over 14 years now. He is currently an active and passive full-time multifamily real estate investor and the CEO of Elevate Commercial Investment Group and owner of J&T Construction, which focuses on helping multifamily investors with their full renovations. Currently, he's focused on continuing to grow his network and locate more co-GP partners, passive investors, and also clients for his construction company. George, it's great to see you, man. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
we're real excited to have you here, man, really.
Yeah, we're definitely excited for this show. We've been waiting to have you on for a while. You're doing some amazing things there over Elevate, but just kind of backtrack. From your bio, it's clear you have an extensive background in real estate and specifically large multifamily properties. But for our listeners who may not be familiar with your story, let's take some time, take us back a little bit, and tell us, why and how you got started in real estate.
Yeah, so been investing in real estate for 15 years now. Not all of that was multifamily, I wish, but started in the single family, then kind of worked my way up to some smaller multifamilies, and really started focusing on fix and flips. Is what I had a passion in. I liked taking those ugly looking properties and transforming them. Got to the point where I decided to open up my own construction company. So we were trying to scale and couldn't find good contractors, at least not enough to scale to this. The goal was to get to around 40 flips a year. So brought it in-house. I knew a little bit of what I was doing. I worked with one of my uncles owns a construction company. I worked with him for a while during college. And then actually when I graduated, so I got an electrical engineering degree. While I was getting that degree, which we talked about before we got on, I know you guys are both engineers as well. Before I finished my degree, I already knew it's not the path I wanted to go down, but I was so far in. Just went ahead and got the degree, started working at UPS in the engineering department, but I had already started educating myself and doing some deals in real estate. So finally I did enough to where I quit my W-2, and that was 15 years ago. So that takes me back to, we started growing and scaling, started the construction company. Sorry, I lost track there. So when I went to work for UPS, it was the engineering department, but technically I was the GC for UPS. Any expansions of the warehouse, we needed to replace a roof, if we needed to do any work like that, I was the one managing it and scheduling all the work and making sure it got done right. So I felt like I had enough experience to start the construction company. There was a lot of learning in the beginning, but it worked out. We were able to scale up and get to that 40 so houses a year. Took it to the next level and started doing some new development as well. And then about 4 years ago, I kind of, I had been so that was 11 years in. I had been grinding so hard and just so into the day-to-day and growing the companies. Kind of woke up and I looked around, and everything I had created and everything I had done was very dependent on the next deal, very transactional. And I felt like I wasn't going to build the generational type wealth that I wanted to build from the beginning. And that's what led me down the path to multifamily. We were working on a renovation for a multifamily property, and I started speaking to the client, and he had syndicated the deal, and that was the first time I even heard about what a syndication was, and take some passive investors and take down one of these large 100+ unit apartments. Instantly fell in love with the concept. You had the scale right built into one property. So I went deep into getting educated, and the numbers part of it came somewhat natural, but still need to get educated on the underwriting. And then decided to put all my focus towards it. And that's right now we're right at about 2,000 doors. We've got quite a bit under contract right now as well. And we're heading into 2021 with full steam ahead, man.
It's pretty crazy. You say you got into this multifamily game, 4 years ago is what you said, about something like that. And you're already scaled this many doors, man. That's some rapid action there. It's pretty amazing. And I want to ask, in terms of that, because you were very successful doing the single family thing, and then basically out of necessity you built this construction company, right? It's kind of one of those things, you couldn't find the right help. I got to do this thing, kind of created on our own. But within that, you must have built some pretty successful systems, right? Just having these things going up for single family and then doing the construction. And then, you find this new thing, multifamily syndications. Have those systems you built, I mean, obviously they've changed, but have the systems you had kind of built in the mindset and all that stuff really helped you when you moved into multifamily?
Absolutely, man. I mean, so those systems, procedures that you're talking about, and all of that, I obviously didn't have it day one when I started the construction company. And with the single family investments, we had some of it, and there wasn't so many moving parts. With the construction company, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of having to trust your team to execute. So yeah, throughout the years, I mean, I built a bunch of that, and then got introduced to the book Traction and the EOS system, and began to implement some of the things that from that book that really helped me be able to run the company, and then to be able to run more than one company, honestly. Just following the way you structure a company and the way you have your systems and procedures and the way you make sure to have the right people in the right seats. So I took, from day one, when I decided to do the multifamily and started Elevate Commercial Investment Group, rather than having to do all the trial and errors, I started from day one knowing that what I was gonna build and how I was gonna build it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's critical. Those systems they're pretty critical. And I love that you brought up Traction. That's a fantastic book, and the system in there is absolutely amazing. Gino Wickman. If anybody has not checked out that book, you got to go check it out. It's amazing. I'm glad you brought that up. And now that we're talking about systems, and you've moved into being an active syndicator, I kind of want to talk about one of the main points that we want to discuss today, and that's due diligence as an active investor. So we know a few investors who are getting more active, currently building their due diligence process. So let's take a little time. Talk to us about what your due diligence process was like when you were getting started, and how it's changed, or maybe even improved. I mean, I'm sure it's improved over the years as you've gained experience as a syndicator.
Yeah, in general, I think the overall concept hasn't changed too much. It's just become a lot more efficient, a lot more software based. So when we go into a due diligence inspection, our goal coming out of there is to know every single thing that's wrong with that property, and everything that we want to renovate and upgrade, and then actually have dollars attached to each of those items, and have our CapEx scope of work built, ready to go. Maybe some tweaks here and there, but the actual total CapEx budget is not going to change. And we know we're not going to be underfunded when it comes time to execute the business plan. We're really detailed when we come to do our inspections. We make sure to cover all the major components of the property. We bring in professionals when we need to. We scope all the plumbing lines. I highly suggest that. So we bring in the licensed plumber that scopes all the lines. Same thing with foundation. We get the foundation levels checked, make sure that we don't have any major shifting. Then we start talking about the upgrades, and we start looking into what we're going to do. Interior unit wise, we use, like I said, software. So we know exactly how many units are classic, how many are upgraded, but not because the broker's telling us, because we actually put eyes on it. We've got pictures of everything, and we can take all that data and then make it useful. I see a lot of the investors that they kind of check the box when they're doing due diligence, but that data just dies there. So we make sure that data is actually taken and used in our business plan and moving forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff there. And I kind of want to touch on something you said. You said make sure that, you're plumbing the lines, and, you're not just checking the boxes. And I'm kind of curious, in terms of, a due diligence process, just in general, what are some of the common challenges or maybe mistakes you've seen other investors make when it comes to the actual, the process? Like, oh, they didn't do this or they didn't do that. I know you just mentioned the plumbing and, not just checking the boxes. Is there anything else that really stands out to you? Like, hey, this is something you need to watch out for?
Man, to me, the biggest thing is not putting numbers on things, not putting real estimates attached to what needs to get done, and kind of just throwing numbers at the CapEx and then closing on the property, and then actually starting to get to work on the CapEx and realizing that you're underfunded and you're not going to be able to execute your business plan, or you're going to have to bring in more capital. For me, that's the biggest thing is not just getting some of this stuff inspected. It's actually getting numbers of what it's going to take to renovate it or fix it or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's got to be huge in terms of the entire deal, right? I mean, it's just something you have to do. And one more thing, I think Chris has got something on CapEx he wants to hit on. But one thing I want to talk about is, you mentioned these people coming in, whether the third party or maybe somebody on your team. Who are some of the key players that you utilize in your due diligence process, whether they're on your team or if it's more third party people? What is that? Who are those people, and what are their roles?
Yeah, on the physical due diligence, it's 100% counting on my construction company. J&T Construction comes in, and my team knows exactly what I'm looking for and what I want to see, and so they're no, and then the Elevate team also comes on board, and we do it together. And then on the lease audit side and contracts and kind of checking on all of that, we usually count on our property manager to do that, as well as somebody on the Elevate team kind of overwatching and making sure nothing gets missed.
Actually, like in terms of talking about things that get missed, I know you said you like to kind of take a look at everything, even down to scoping the plumbing lines. Are there anything, like with your experience, that you find that people might overlook, like something that might be a common mistake, not a common mistake, but something that like, I didn't even think about that, I'll never do that again?
I mean, plumbing is probably number one, and then drainage comes to mind. So it can cause a lot of issues if your water is not being drained appropriately. So you have a heavy rain, and then if your yard is not sloped away from your foundation, or you don't have drains put in place to collect that water, and it's all going back towards the foundation of the buildings, you're going to have foundation shifting. So that can cause a lot of issues. I think of another one that kind of gets, I would say in general, trusting what the seller and broker tell you on some things, and not really, if the broker is telling you the roofs were replaced 3 years ago, and then you're already thinking, oh, I'm not going to have to replace the roofs, I'm not going to put anything into the roofs, you don't get it inspected. I'm not saying they're lying. Hey, the roofs could have gotten replaced 3 years ago, but they used some guy out of a pickup truck that did everything wrong, and your roofs are going to be issues. So I would say those are the most common.
I think it's a pretty good point about the roof, and I don't care really how new your roof is here in Oklahoma. We get some pretty serious weather out here, and you might have a 3-year-old roof, but it might look like it's 10 or 15 years old with all the hail and the wind damage that we consistently get.
Yeah, same here in Texas. That's another good point. Is actually, you bring up a great point. Another thing I see get missed is along this thing with the roofs is if you get it inspected and there's an insurance claim, you can get the seller to file that claim. We actually put it into our contract where they have to transfer that claim over to us. So that can save you a ton of money right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's real common, I think. More common than I think people might see. Just put it in the contract, get it in there, and it'll get taken care of. I think you answered one of my other questions previously, so I didn't really need to ask it anymore. So
yeah, that was a great tip too. And if we can, I kind of want to transition a little bit, because we're familiar with your company, Elevate. It's a great company. You guys are doing some major things, and actually we're familiar with some of your team members. In fact, we had John Akocha, your acquisitions guy, on our show a while back. Great guy, by the way. I love John for sure. But I want to talk a little bit about team building. We know it's critical to put the right people in the right places. And, between the number of companies that you've already built, what are some things you do to ensure you're getting the right people on your team?
One is, I know it sounds silly, but really listening and continually check in with your team and make sure that they feel like they're in the right spot and where they can excel the most. A lot of the times, if you don't ask, they'll kind of just continue doing what they're doing. But if you were literally just to move them over to the seat right next to them, they'll go to the next level. Mm-hmm. So, constantly checking in with them and not doing, I'm not talking about a quarterly review or a yearly review, like really go in deep and make sure that they feel like they're in the right spot.
Okay. It's a lot of important stuff there. I'm curious, you've done a lot of passive investing yourself. Like, do you think making those passive investments help you with becoming like a better active syndicator in the beginning, and how, if so?
Yeah. I mean, I feel they did, and they still do. I still invest passively in my deals, and outside of my deals as well. I'm not sure if you call it passively investing in your own deal, but you know what I mean. Putting funds towards the
Right.
LP, but yes, I think the idea was originally was to kind of get a better feel for it, and see what other active investors were doing and how they were communicating with their passive investors. And I still like doing that. I just invested passively about a month ago with a group. They've done big things, and I kind of just wanted to see what they do with their investors. It also helps with building relationships. So, whether it's, for me and the construction company, not that because I'm investing passively in a deal, that group's going to give me the CapEx or future renovation. But I think it helps kind of open that door and start that relationship. Same with co-GPs. If there's a co-GP you really want to partner with on a deal, I suggest you invest passively in one of their deals. You're going to get their attention that way. At least, where I'm at now, I get a ton of people reaching out wanting to partner on deals, which is great. I mean, I love doing that. But sometimes for someone to stand out, they got to do something. I'm not saying you have to put money into one of our deals for us to co-GP, but I mean, other things like, something else I can think of is just being very detailed about what you bring to the table versus just kind of saying, I can offer my help, or, I'd like to help your team. Be more detailed on what that is. What can you actually help with? What can you bring to the table?
Yeah, I think those are some great points. And, we kind of had the same mindset. When we first heard about syndication, thinking like, man, we'd love to get in this actively. It's going to be great. But then you look at this, amount of work it takes. It's like, oh yeah, we need to back up a little bit. Let's learn a little bit more. Let's invest passively first. So that's kind of what the route we took, similar to what you're saying. But I think it's a great way to learn. You can learn a lot by investing passively in a deal, just by, talking to the sponsor, seeing their communications, all of those things. I think it's for us, it was important, just having to see that just to get more knowledge, and like you said, build those relationships. So I think it was absolutely critical. But, we're kind of on the point of talking about passive investing. I kind of want to keep going there for a little bit. And, earlier we were talking about due diligence, and a lot of passive investors listen to the show. We talked to a lot of passive investors. So let's take a little bit of time and talk about the due diligence passive investors should be doing, or maybe some of the questions they should be asking sponsors when they're looking at deals.
No, yeah, absolutely, man. I created a checklist of questions to ask the sponsors, and not sure. So there's your typical questions, you want to ask them about their track record and just in general, what their experience level is, and even a step further, kind of getting more detailed on the deal and how they plan to execute the business plan. Who their key team players are that are going to execute it. If for instance, if it's a large CapEx budget in the project, a good question would be, who on your team has the experience handling something this large, and who on the team is going to manage it and make sure that it gets executed correctly and on time. Asking for reports. Can I see an example report that you send to your investors? And just a little more detailed than just the overall. To me, the team is the most important thing. If I can't get past feeling comfortable with who's leading that investment, then I'm not going to look any further. So that's the first thing I got to do. And then once I feel comfortable with that, then I start digging a little bit more into the deal. I want to know the location, pretty much deal sponsor, location, and then the actual property.
Sure. So I do have a question about, doing the due diligence, because you say, sponsors, the number one thing you got to focus on, because you got to trust them and like them and know them and, understand before you invest with them. There's a lot of people getting into the space, wanting to be investors, and some people are wanting to invest with them. But the question they're having is, you don't have, they haven't been through a downturn, or they haven't had a ton of experience. Do you think that's a game changer? I mean, I'm just asking, it's basically a question just to ask is, do you think that's a game changer in terms of, passive investors making that investment with a syndicator?
I think it's definitely a pro. Like, I know from experience, so I went through a downturn, 2006, 7, whatever you want to call it. And I know what can happen. Like I've seen it, and for instance, right now with some of where the pricing is getting on some of these deals, especially on the C class and paying 110, 120 a door for a C-class. Some of that stuff is red flags to me, and it's mainly because I've been through a downturn, and I know it's not going to keep going up this way. It's got to come down a little and then go back up, because that's what happens, right?
Right.
So I know with our acquisitions, I'm very focused on our basis and what we're going in at. I don't just look at the projected NOI and price per door that produces with a projected cap rate, right? I look at the actual price per door on that exit. Do I think that makes sense? Do I think realistically in 5 years, can I sell this C-class property for 180 a door in this location, 1960s building? Maybe yes, maybe no. But I look at it. I don't just. So yes, I think it is very important. Now, will I not invest in a deal because nobody on the team has been through a downturn in real estate? I'm not saying that. I will ask more questions and I'll pay more attention to the deal.
I definitely appreciate you sharing that, because, we talk to a lot of passive investors like ourselves, and those are the things they bring up, because they want to be able to trust people. How can they trust people? How do they know they're getting with, investing with the right team? And, we say some of the similar things, check the experience, the background, get references if you have to, all of these things. It's critical that they do this, and we kind of push it along. So I really appreciate you going into detail about some of that stuff. George, it's been a great conversation, man. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. But before we get out of here, we're going to take some time and shine the spotlight on you. So tell listeners more about Elevate and everything else you got going on.
Nice. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, we've got a couple 506C deals right now. We've got one in South Dakota that we've just got a couple spots on. Great market. A lot of people don't know about it. We've got another one in Houston. More people probably know about Houston, but Houston's it's really popping right now. People are starting to realize that you can still get into some of these deals at a per door that's somewhat reasonable. And we're talking about the fourth largest city in the U.S. Very diverse market, no longer 100% relied on gas and oil. So they can check out all that stuff on our website. We got a bunch of free content on our website too, which is elevatecig.com. If they email me, I can send them over. Any of your listeners, I can send them over that sponsor checklist I spoke about. I also got a due diligence checklist. And my email is George or Jorge, Jorge, at elevatecig.com. Last thing I'll mention is I've got a land development course that I'm working on. Should be coming out pretty soon. I know we didn't talk much about that and developing land, but if anybody's interested, they can go ahead and email me, and I'll make sure to get to them when I release that course.
A lot of great stuff on there, man. Excited you're getting these deals going on and you're making some major moves. And I just want to bring one quick thing. You do have a free ebook that is included on your website too. Is that correct?
It is. That one's on the website. The checklist and stuff, actually, I think we ended up putting it on the website under resources, but they can feel free to shoot me an email too, and I'll send it over.
We're going to make sure to put all those links and, contact information in the show notes for sure. So if our listeners want to reach out to you, they can do so. And we highly encourage all of our listeners to do just that. George, you guys are doing some amazing things over there at Elevate, and we look forward to watching your continued success this year, man. And we really appreciate you coming on the show, take the time to speak with us today.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.